This is Susan Hamilton, and you've tuned in to the Offbeat Business Show. Thank you so much for joining us during your valuable lunch hour. We know how important that is to you. And today I've got a special treat for you. We are coming off the heels of Rocks Digital, our annual social media conference here in the DFW area. It's just full of fantastic information. And I'm talking to Byron Ingraham today, who I have been lucky enough to run into twice now over the last couple of years. And funny enough, how going to these events actually helps develop these relationships, because there's a familiarity between us now.
Oh, exactly.
You know, that we were able to have. And friends, if you're not going to events, you're really missing out on something very important for your business growth and development. Wouldn't you agree, Byron?
Oh, totally. It's an essential part of it, because you're meeting people you would typically never come into contact with, even though you could be running in slightly the same circles. It's just these are events where everybody comes together.
Absolutely, and from all over the nation. I thought that was pretty interesting, too.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and then we get to, over time, the more you run into somebody, the more it's like you just talked for the very first time,
right,
and like
exactly.
You've known each other for a year. When we haven't talked all year.
Right.
Well, we've run into each other on social media because
right.
we've been social media friends.
Right, exactly. And social media is just one of those powerful tools that anybody can utilize in their business, because you can be able to keep track of people, you're able to see what's going on, so it doesn't, like you meet someone for the first time in like 6-7 months, and you're like, what's been going on? You've seen everything, what's happening. So you're able just to jump right into business and figure out what do you want to make happen right then and there, instead of starting the rapport building process all over again.
You know, social media is really one of those things that we struggle with in American business today. It seems like it's a great big extra thing that we have to do for our business that doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I see business owners really struggling with being in that space. On the one hand, they say, why can't I get found? And on the other hand, why do I have to spend time doing this? It doesn't make me any money. So you can see there's a problem there.
Right.
So what do you see with the people that you work with?
One of the things I see at first, you hit it directly on the head. Why do we have to be doing it? Let's face it, we live in a social world. We've always lived in a social world, but the mediums have changed. You think about going back 20, 30 years ago, it was mainly, oh, look, it's the newspaper. You had your traditional terrestrial radio, those types of things where you're communicating. So everything was to the masses, and most things were simply one-directional. But now with social media, people are able to communicate faster. Think of it this way. When was the last time that you received a personal note in the mail? Probably was quite a long time.
Actually, I actually do get personal notes quite
really?
a bit, and I know that's unusual, but I also know that today there's a little more of a trend towards that.
Right.
Because we are really looking for that personal relationship in business.
Right. When you think about the masses, if you were to go back in time, that's how everybody communicated. So you were just used to seeing, here's another letter, another letter, and then it drifted away. But now everything is digital. So if you're wanting to communicate with people, you have to do it exactly where they are. But in the past, it was going to be in your newspapers. It was going to be traditionally just on your radio, on television. Now everybody has a mobile phone. Is your content being able to be found there? You're being able to be found on Facebook.
Now I'm going to back you up a little bit, Byron. I'm going to back you up a little bit, because we're talking, you said the C word. You talked about content. Tell me, don't you know, people just don't understand how content relates to the way they are perceived online by the audience. I mean, do you really think that most average businesses out there today think they have an audience that cares anything about their content?
Believe it or not, it comes down to the relationships. That if you build up rapport and trust with your clients, they're going to care what's going on. It becomes no different than you develop friendships with people. They're going to care what's happening in your life. So if you put out things that's of interest to them, they're going to care. Now, if you're just putting out content just to fill space, it's going to become noise, and no one's going to pay attention to it.
Huge waste of time. Huge waste of time. I see that as one of the major mistakes that we're making, is doing it just because somebody said, oh, you ought to blog. Friends, if you're blogging and you're using social media because someone said you ought to do it, Byron and I are here to tell you today that is no way to develop a relationship, and as a matter of fact, it's a fine way to tune people out, because they're really not interested in hearing that.
Exactly. You look at the amount of content that's out there on a daily basis. If you just look at your news feed on Facebook and you see the number of ads that are coming through there, the number of stories, the things that people are sharing with each other of what's happening. It's
you're
huge.
saying that's content.
That's content, but here's the key to it. It has to be relevant to who you want to talk to. And in terms of not just, here's an article about, let's say, a pizza business or a coffee shop, or why you should drink coffee. No, it needs to really resonate with somebody, such as how to make the best type of coffee, how to effectively change a tire on a car when you're stranded on the side of the road. It has to have an emotional connection, because we make buying decisions off of our emotions. And if that's not conveyed, no one's going to care.
I think that's very interesting that you put it in such a way, because largely what people are afraid of, and one of the reasons that the Offbeat Business Show records these just on our iPad, unless you see the outtakes and everything about it, is to take away the big scary. But like you said, how to change a tire using it, how are people going to do that? Nobody's going to read that information, friends. So how you put your information out there has everything to do with the type of audience that you're going to draw.
Right.
So that would definitely be a video. And you can't be afraid of using that video on a regular basis if you own a business, because there are so many ways that you're going to find that you can share information that really resonates with your particular audience if you master the space.
Exactly. And speaking of video, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's going to be the theme about so many things. It's just doing it. Because if you look at a lot of content that you'll see out there on YouTube and the videos even shared on Facebook, how many of them look like they've been shot on a mobile phone? The goofy ones with cats in them, or someone just having an epic fail where they're falling flat on their face, or those humorous things you'll see, they're shot with a phone, yet they're shared millions of times.
Now, how does a business owner make that huge leap from that ridiculous type of content to content that actually builds their business? Because I'm not going to build my business with a cat video. Odds are good.
Right. Unless you're a veterinarian or
Sure.
Like
unless that
right.
pertains to my group.
Right. Well, the simple thing comes down to it's knowing who your audience is. Who is your ideal customer? What is it that they resonate with? Can you be more jovial in a video? Or do you have to be a little more serious depending on who your clientele is? Because you have to have it resonate. If it doesn't resonate, they're just going to go on to the next thing, which typically means on to their next competitor. And you want to gain their attention. So it has to resonate with them.
So I think you're right about it being adding humor. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Adding humor, I think, is huge.
Right.
Somewhere you need to make sure it's something's funny, because people do tend to share humorous content.
And humor is that thing you have to be a little cautious on. Here's why. People have different types of humor.
Yes, sir.
For example, in the Midwest, you could get away with a little more sarcasm than you can in other parts of the country.
I'm from Wisconsin, and I can tell you that's true.
Oh, yes. So there's going to be a cheese joke coming up pretty soon.
Well, too, content and digital content is going to be here forever.
Right.
So the issue then becomes, what I think is funny today, will somebody even understand that lingo in another 5 to 10 years, when it could still be working for me if I didn't limit my audience with that lingo?
Exactly, and that's a key thing, is ensuring that the language you utilize, it can be understood by everybody. If it's some local vernacular that only you and 5 of your friends will ever understand, leave it out. So it has to maintain that presence that everyone can grasp onto, like, I get it, and I want to know more about them.
Absolutely. I think that's good advice, Byron. I think that we need to make sure we're not being cute in our titles or in our email subject lines when it comes to sharing that content, because that title is what's going to get shared. So that's the part people are going to see first.
Oh, yes. Now, speaking of email subject lines, this is a particular touch point I like to remind people of. You have to be...
Okay, now listen in, friends, because we're about to go to break. So you get this tip, and then I'm going to leave you hanging, and we'll be right back. So tell us, Byron.
It's about being authentic. There's a lot of courses and things you'll see people teaching out there focused only on the open rates, but the subject lines are going to be spammy. It might be it looks like it's a response to something, or it could say invoice where you didn't buy anything from them. Imagine for a moment you see an email that says your invoice is attached, or thanks for your purchase.
Sure. Well, we all get that.
Right. And you didn't buy anything. Right. You're going to have this immediate sense of shock, like, oh, did I buy something by accident? Mm-hmm. And then you realize, what the heck? I didn't buy this. Mm-hmm. Now there's this disconnect between you and the business because they're focused on getting it open. And how many times do you go, well, you know what? I don't want to do business with that person if they're using tactics like this. So they hit unsubscribe. Focus on humor. Focus on things that are funny, such as, hey, did my email get lost with the pizza coupons?
That's good advice. Friends, we are going to go to break. Thank you so much for joining us over your lunch hour. I hope you're enjoying Byron as much as I am. We'll be back in just a few moments. You're listening to the Offbeat Business Show.
Hey everybody, this is Blake Miller. I own a company called Ozone Purity where we flood the body with oxygen. If any guys are worried about just getting toxic and full of the pollution out there in the world, come see us. We specialize in something called ozone therapy, flooding the body with electrical oxygen. We have little steam saunas and we pump ozone through the system and just release all the waste. We're at Addison Beltline. Website is www.ozonepurity.com, or go to our app. You can see all of our products, all of our services on your app store under Ozone Purity.
Hi, my name is Elva Hernandez, and I'm the co-owner of H2 Dream Enterprises. And what we do is help people become debt-free and time-rich. So we partnered with a company called LifeVantage so we can help college students pay off their student loans, parents to stay at home to raise their children, and retirees to enjoy a stress-free retirement. You can reach me at h2dreamenterprises@gmail.com or at 214-457-9095 for more information.
And we're back. This is Susan Hamilton, and you're listening to the Offbeat Business Show, and I'm talking to Byron Ingraham, and we have been talking about content, and I didn't expect our conversation to go there, but it's actually quite interesting, isn't it? Because people don't understand what content is, and a lot of people don't understand that your email is content, and It is sharing, and if it's done well, it should be bringing people back to your website and back to a sale. So help us understand then, Byron, what are some things that we need to make sure we're avoiding with those subject lines?
Obviously, you want to avoid things that are spammy. That's the most important thing. If anything else, is making sure that it doesn't sound like, hey, you won a free car. Stay away from the hypey things. Be realistic. That is key. If it sounds hypish, it's probably going to end up in somebody's spam folder. And that's just the kiss of death to any type of email campaign.
Mm-hmm. And do you know, and friends, do you understand why that's the kiss of death? You want to really be sure that no one's flagging you as spam. Once you get flagged as spam, you are more likely to get flagged as spam from every other email service.
Exactly. And what tends to happen is if you get flagged as spam too much, you could be shut down. And you don't want that. That's the kiss of death to any campaign. If you spend just years working on it and you decide to do something that's really spammy, the provider can just shut you down because that hurts everything else they're doing. So they don't want that.
Yeah, because that's government regulated.
Right.
So that's Federal Trade Commission, FCC. I mean, we've got a lot of things governing what gets to go out. So let's make some good choices with our canned spam here and try really hard to just have a conversation with people, even in your subject lines.
Exactly. And it goes beyond the subject line. It gets into the content itself. Here's something that I talked about at one of my last presentations.
Okay.
The majority of people these days are using Gmail in one variation or another for their email provider. Now, here's the key. Previously, Google implemented something with you have tabs in your inbox. So if something sounds too salesy, it ends up in the promotions tab. And that's just about the same as the kiss of death because everything in that one folder is a promotion for a sale. Most people are not going to look in there because they don't want to be sold. So you have to make sure that it's something that's of value that people are going to read, so then it can end up in the main folder.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that you'll always hear me talk about using Aweber, friends, because when we're using an email service provider for those marketing emails specifically, they're more likely to get in. They've already done a lot of the research and done a lot of the footwork to make sure that you're going to get in. You have an increased rate. What's the word I'm looking
open
for?
Rate.
Thank you. You've got an increased open rate. Well, if they see it, and odds that it's actually going to end up in the inbox and not in the spam folder.
Right. Now, here's another little tip that you can easily do. Most of the time, businesses will use these fancy templates that have all these images, and it looks like a nice little fancy production. Throw all of that out the window.
They just don't show up.
Exactly. Well, here's what happens. They end up in the promotions tab. So if you want your content to be seen, make it look like it's a letter written from a friend. Because let's face it, we're going to read something that it's written that way. Don't come across as salesy. Tell them what's going on in your world. If you just got back from your vacation, say, hey, I just got back from my vacation. So there's a really cool thing out there. And you know what? In business this week, we have blank going on.
And
People are gonna
connect those dots.
Right.
And you need to, it's your job to connect that dot also. So a lot of people don't really equate, hey, what I'm doing in business to, wow, people need to know about me through social media and email. I mean, that just seems like a whole other job title.
Right.
And we just don't want to deal with it. And I think it's really great that you're going to be teaching people how to understand, how to master this space a little better, Byron. Tell us a little bit about the marketing boot camp you have coming up.
Oh, sure. Well, the Marketing Boot Camp, it's really designed as a way to jumpstart your marketing efforts. Since a lot of business owners, some of them might have a website online or they might not, it's taking them from that beginning stage so they can understand identifying specifically who your ideal client is. And we'll spend a moment talking about that. A lot of business owners will say things like, oh, I help everybody with blank. That's a lot of people. And if you were to look at any major brand, they can tell you specifically who's their customer and more specifically who's not their customer.
Now, wait a minute. You're saying you can come up with that information before you even have a website.
Oh, totally.
That's good news.
Imagine that.
That's good news.
Right.
Yeah, you can start learning a little bit about your audience and about what they want. So
right.
Go into a little more detail with that, Byron.
Sure. Well, think about it for a moment. In terms of your audience here, you know exactly who you want to have as your listeners, who are going to be your business owners, people who are interested in business, who truly want to grow their business. It's not for the regular Joe out there who's just working the normal 9 to 5, who doesn't even want to start a business.
Right. It's not for everyone.
Right. Exactly. So you know who your audience is. You know the guests that you need to have. It's the same thing with any business out there. When you specifically hone in on that audience, now all of your content relates to them. The stories you share will build up the rapport. It all comes back together because it's going to drive everything from the content on your website to the way your website looks, what type of presence you need to have on social media, which social media networks do you need to be on, what times you should post. Everything is driven off of understanding who your ideal customer is.
So while it's not necessary to have a website to get started, you
No.
absolutely do need a website in business today, and you need to be driving people to your website as often as possible because that's where the buy now button is.
Right.
So we
Exactly.
need to, and that's where, call me, connect with me.
Right.
Yes, it is, and we've got to not ignore that. And if your copy is not strong enough to get people to actually come to a sales decision once they get to your website, that can be a whole other problem. Does your program address anything like that?
Oh, yes, totally. It's part of one of the weeks is going to get into what you need to have on your website, such as the contact sections of what type of content you should have, how to optimize it, getting into those things that you just might not know about. That it has to go from the normal conversational piece to writing in a way that has a certain sense of purpose. What are the call to actions? Those key principles you need to have in your content. Otherwise, people are going to read and go, okay, that's great, and they go to do whatever they were going to do in the first place. Instead of stopping to take a look and think, I want to know more about this. Mm-hmm. That's part of the content there. But it goes beyond just your website. Looking at social media, how do you set up that foundation? How do you link things together? Because we live in this world where you have to syndicate your content. Because people are going to view your content where they are. That's how you get them back to you.
You have to syndicate. Yes, you. You have to syndicate.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you do.
It's part of the routine nowadays. That Google no longer just looks at how many links you have coming to your site. It's all about the influence, what people are talking about, how many people are talking about your site. That's what matters. So if you're thinking that, oh, I don't want to participate in social media, you might as well just say, I don't care to be found in the search engines anymore.
Interesting. Those types of things really equate to you having a media library of information that backs you up, and it backs up the conversations that you have.
Right.
So there's so many ways to look at what using content will do in your space. And there's 5 different types of content out there that are so important to be using. We talked a little bit about video,
right.
And I want to tell everybody to make sure you go over to Byron's Facebook page. Tell them how to find you.
It's simple. Go to facebook.com/the Byron Ingram.
Byron Ingram has little videos. They're just little inspirational, little, hey guys, did you think about this today type of videos that he's, and by virtue of just listening to that and getting involved in it, you'll realize how simple that is. Friends, you could do that too. I don't care if you are a residential service business, if you sell insurance, whatever your thing is, there is something that you can use this type of form for.
Right, exactly. And beyond just having the Facebook page, I also have a group on Facebook where I created it, because it's about having a place where business owners, entrepreneurs can connect with one another. So if they're having that type of issue and saying, hey, has anyone come in contact with Blake? Now there's that place they can connect with someone else. Because someone might have already went through and said, oh, yeah, you need to do this. So you have a support community. Because you think about it, as business owners, sometimes we're off on our own making things happen. And your normal circle of friends, well, they don't understand what you're going through. But now you have this community online you can connect with. And to join that group, all you have to do is go to facebook.com/themovementmastermind.
Oh, well, see, they don't have to worry about spelling that like they do your last name.
Oh, that's easy.
Tell them how to find you online. What's your website?
My website is very simple. It's just byroningram.com.
But would you please spell that?
Well, of course, Vanna. I can spell it for you.
And I will also have this underneath the video, friends, when you see this, and included on the podcast. But go ahead and speak that out.
Oh, definitely. It's byroningraham.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you've got two different programs. You've got one boot camp that is, if I remember, that you said 6 weeks.
It's 6 weeks long.
All right, and how long are those modules?
The modules each is 1 week long. It's designed to give you that base level foundation, so that you're not overwhelmed, because it's about taking action.
Well, and friends, that's what I'm all about. I think that's very important. Don't get yourselves into something where you're taking on so much information, you're paralyzed and you don't do anything at all. Get those small amounts, and I think a week is really a nice safe zone to learn something before you go on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Very nice, Byron.
And that's why it's packaged that way. So you're not too overwhelmed. Is it a lot of information? Yes, because it's a boot camp. But by the end of it, you should be well on your way of increasing your social presence online and have things set in place to be able to attract people to your business. That's the power of it. And then the next level up, it's an advanced boot camp, where we get into more advanced strategies that you really need the foundation from the first one to understand, such as advanced tactics of using Facebook ads, or how can you be able to set up backlinking campaigns for your website so your content is automatically syndicated. Getting into the things like that, which ultimately help you. But the first one is just so that way you get up and running.
Wonderful, and it's good that people that have already maybe understand that, you'll take them to the next level with the next. And how long is that next course?
That next course is just 4 weeks.
Okay. All right, so it's intensive, friends.
It's
intensive. Business owners, you can make more money, but we are going to have to really get wise about how we show up online and how to build our authority, because that really is our credibility.
Exactly.
It's that backup. That content is books, but it's websites, and it's blogs, and it's audios, videos, it's infographics. There's so many ways that you can make sure you are showing up in that space. I always hated, Byron, I hated people spending all their time like this. I hated it. And yes, if you're an audio, I'm holding my hand in front of my face as if I'm using my phone. That drives me crazy when people don't have a communication, and I didn't ever want to be a part of the problem. But I got to realizing that if I'm not in that space, I can't influence it.
Exactly.
And so all of our businesses, we do need to make sure we're mastering that and getting the tools in our hands to really do a good job.
Right.
Friends, did you enjoy talking to Byron as much as I did? I hope you did. I hope you know he's there for you and he wants to help you do business. And Byron, are you just locally or are you nationwide? Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, sure. Well, obviously I'm here in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
But with my programs, I have clients that are on both of the coasts of the U.S. here.
Okay, wonderful.
So it makes it very easy to help people anywhere, because we live in that digital world. So it doesn't matter where you are, the principles are still the same of how you attract and influence people.
Very good, very good. Friends, if you want more information about this, know that you can always find our lineups, our replays, and subscribe to your very own Offbeat Business magazine at offbeatbusiness.com. This is Susan Hamilton. You've been listening to the Offbeat Business Show with Byron Ingram, and we've been talking social media and content, and I'd love to hear your comments, so make sure you share those with me. Until next time, Susan Hamilton, the Offbeat Business Show.